Both Hannah, my girlfriend, and I were raised in a large town with a population of approximately 20,000 people. Despite attending the same high school, we didn't cross paths until a few years ago. Following our college years, I secured a job that required frequent travel within the state. In an effort to conduct business in my hometown as well, I requested to be stationed at the local branch, as there was no representative there. My request was granted, and after a few months, I settled into a routine of spending 1 to 2 weeks at the city office, 1 week in my hometown, and 1 to 2 weeks traveling throughout the country. After 1 year, I made the decision to purchase a house in my hometown. I encountered Hannah at a Friday night gathering. I had recently returned from a trip and was going through paperwork at my workplace when Craig, the managing director and my colleague, entered the room. Craig and I had grown up together, although we attended different high schools. Nevertheless, we developed a close friendship. He inquired about my plans and invited me to a house party with his friends that evening. It was short notice, but I agreed to join for some drinks with friends. At the party, Craig introduced me to Hannah, a newly hired employee at the branch where my hometown's office was located. We instantly connected. Everything went smoothly. Hannah bonded with my parents, and her parents were relieved that she had found someone who brought her happiness after going through relationship problems and depression. After 2 years of being together, she moved into my house in my hometown. Everything was great for almost a year, but then things took a turn. Our FaceTime calls became shorter, and she often claimed to be too busy to answer the phone. Neighbors informed me about a car resembling Craig's, a black Chevy Camaro, spotted near my house when I was not around. I discovered clothes in my wardrobe that didn't belong to me. There were indications that she was being unfaithful, but she denied it, insisting that I was just being overly suspicious. She explained that Craig would occasionally visit for work-related discussions, but never stayed. Overnight, I dismissed my concerns, thinking I was just being paranoid, and continued on as if everything was fine. However, there was a persistent feeling that something was amiss. Eventually, I uncovered the truth that she had been lying to me. After almost half a year, I finished a major project ahead of schedule and decided to change my flight to return home earlier, hoping to surprise everyone. As I drove into my hometown, I noticed Craig's car blocking the entrance gate at the back. Feeling confused, I approached the house and caught sight of Hannah and Craig engaging in intimate activities in the kitchen. Overwhelmed with shock and disappointment, I left without them noticing. I drove in my car for what seemed like an eternity, shedding many tears. However, soon my sadness transformed into anger. I had a strong desire to inflict harm upon them, but I am not someone who believes in resorting to violence. That was the moment I made up my mind to inflict suffering and ruin their lives. And there was no better time to begin than now. I drove back up the narrow street, maintaining a safe distance from my own driveway to catch a glimpse of Craig's car. Then I retraced my steps to the gate, where I had a clear view into the house, and dialed her phone. As it rang, both of them appeared startled upon seeing my name on the caller ID. I noticed she contemplated answering, but they let it continue ringing for a while before returning to their activities. The phone rang once more. This time she picked up the phone. As she was answering, I hung up and went back to my car. As soon as I did, she called me back and asked why I was calling so late. I said I was about 15 minutes from home and didn't want to scare her when I was coming in. She was surprised but acted happy that I was coming. The call ended quickly after she said she was going to get up and get changed. I said bye and hung up. A few moments later, Craig rushed through the gate half undressed, jumped into his car, and sped off. I laughed a little, knowing they were close to getting caught. I waited a bit before turning my car into the same place Craig had been moments earlier. The night was quiet after that, and it wasn't until she fell asleep that I went to my office. I couldn't sleep. I needed a plan, and planned revenge I did. My mother always taught me to be a pacifist and let karma take its course. But this time, I decided karma needed some help. I planned to punish them separately, but ruin them both. I knew Craig had a Medicaid weakness, though not major, and kept it private. I found out accidentally when I saw some powder in his office but pretended not to notice. I did him a favor because our office had a strict, no substance mistreat policy. Weeks later, with friends over, including Craig, for drinks, I made sure he was pretty drunk. I told him to stay the night. I took his office keys and went to our branch office, knowing he'd be asleep until morning. I searched his desk and found a hidden compartment in a drawer. I hit the jackpot with all sorts of stuff inside. I took photos, put everything back, and installed a tiny spy camera above the door. Craig must be using medications at least twice a day, judging by what I found. I had suggested installing CCTV cameras at home for security, but Hannah was hesitant. Before leaving for a flight, I staged a break-in by smashing my back door and leaving it open. I got messages about it when I arrived. My mom was panicking, Hannah was upset, and the police asked me to call. After returning calls, I told the police I was away on business and would talk to them next week. While away, I had Hannah stay with my parents and got my dad to arrange for security cameras and an alarm system. After returning, I acted surprised about the break-in and had the security company explain everything to us. Then came the question I had been waiting for. What if we conduct some business and I don't want a record of it? When she posed this question, she acted shy, but I understood exactly why she was asking. He reassured us that this was a common question and on the home computer. He demonstrated how to prevent certain cameras from recording if we wanted to maintain privacy, especially to protect her modesty. As I walked him out, I inquired if turning off the cameras could trigger a notification as a security precaution. He came back in, guided me through setting up email notifications, and left shortly after. Additionally, after Hannah finished grocery shopping, I strategically placed spy button cameras throughout the house. It was fantastic. All I needed to do was wait. At this juncture, I sought assistance from legal advice groups on Reddit regarding the couples law in my country. I wanted to ensure that my upcoming plan could be legally executed, and I wouldn't be obligated to pay money or equity to Hannah. I wanted to avoid any unpleasant surprises where she might take money from me. Thanks to the Reddit community, I connected with a helpful lawyer who assured me that despite dating for almost 4.5 years, we hadn't lived together long enough to be considered a de facto couple. Also, the fact that I paid all the utilities on the property she lived in without paying rent demonstrated she had no legal standing for a financial claim against me. Just to be sure, he drafted a solid legal document just in case anything went wrong legally. More good news followed. The next week, my boss offered me a promotion to lead the team in the city, reducing travel. Accepting the offer, I began the process of transferring, which would take about 6 weeks. Ample time to gather all my evidence. Upon returning to my hometown the following week, I initiated the remaining steps of my plan. I asked Craig for a favor, requesting approval for 1 week of vacation for Hannah for 2 weeks. I aimed to send her and a friend or two on a short break. He agreed, expressing enthusiasm and congratulating me on being ready to take a significant step in my life for the second time. I hugged him back tightly, although not in the way he might have imagined. He agreed and blocked out the week for me, and I requested him to keep it a surprise, knowing it would spread like wildfire around the office. That was my plan. That evening, I informed Hannah that I had booked an all-expenses-paid trip for her and two friends to a tropical spa resort for a week, instructing her to pick 2 friends for the surprise of her life. I then shared that the following week, I would be in the city preparing for a crucial client and I wouldn't be home until the Monday she was leaving. This seemed to disappoint her a bit, but I assured her it would be worth it when she returned. What I failed to disclose was my decision to take a 2-week vacation on the other side of the country, mentally preparing myself for the challenges that would arise the moment she stepped foot on the plane, all while enjoying my first taste of freedom on Sunday. 2 weeks later, I flew back in, started driving home. Upon arrival, I quickly passed by my house, and sure enough, Craig's car was there. Similar to the first night I caught them, I parked a bit away and checked the CCTV cameras. They were all live, but I couldn't find them. Switching to the spy cameras and the one hidden in the bedside lamp, I discovered them in my bedroom. Since we hadn't installed any CCTV in our bedroom, she probably felt they were safe on our bed. No surprise, as I had recorded them doing this constantly over the 2 weeks I was away. I then made my first call to the police, blocking my caller ID. I informed them that I was one of my neighbors who saw someone in a car in the alley behind my house, passing things through the windows to passing cars and looking into my yard. I expressed concern about possible medication dealing, providing Craig's car details and description and stating I suspected him to be the medication dealer. They said they'd have someone there in a few minutes, so I thanked them and hung up. After that, using a new email I had just set up, I sent all the videos from the spy cam of Craig doing medications in his office and also the photos from the other night. I forwarded these to his boss after searching through his desk. Next, I called Hannah and let her know I was about 10 minutes from home. Even though I knew she was flying out the next day, I wanted to surprise her. Looking back at the footage now, I chuckled at the commotion I caused, and I'm surprised I didn't hear any sounds. In a few seconds, Craig came out, half-dressed, and hurried to his car through the back door. It was perfect. As Craig sped away, a police car behind me saw him driving fast and gave chase. After arriving, greeting an excited Hannah, and doing all the couple things, she fell asleep again. On the contrary, I couldn't sleep at all. The next day, she and her friends left in a car. Once they were gone, I had to wait a few hours, but then I started executing my plan. I called my friend, a removalist, and apologized for the late notice, but I needed my place packed and moved. On Friday, after agreeing on a time, I told him he would need to take certain boxes to a storage facility, which he said wasn't an issue. Then I began packing Hannah's belongings. Later that day, the police called for me to identify if I knew Craig and if I suspected him of any suspicious activities or medication use. Our town took a strict stance on medication law enforcement. I expressed pretended shock and replied no. Turns out they had apprehended the suspect from the previous night with a lot of hard and illegal medications in his vehicle. I grinned, happy that my plan for Craig had come to fruition. By this point, the town was buzzing with news. Events in my hometown don't stay secret for long. Craig was disgraced and promptly fired for medication possession. That night, I went to my parents' house and told them and Hannah's parents what had happened, leaving out certain details, and that I was moving back to the city after being promoted. But Hannah wouldn't be a part of it. They were initially upset that I hadn't kept them informed, but were glad I was handling everything maturely and hadn't steeped to their level, though they didn't agree with ghosting Hannah. After some drinks, laughs, and tears, I went home on Friday afternoon after a busy week of organizing cleaners for the following week, contacting the real estate agent to put my house on the rental market and completing various tasks. At my hometown's office, I packed some things into my car, drove to my parents' place, said goodbye, and before leaving, I visited Catherine's house. Catherine had been one of Hannah's closest friends growing up. She was the only other person who knew what was happening. Without her help, I probably wouldn't have been able to organize everything as quickly as I did. I gave Catherine a large manila folder with my gathered evidence of her cheating, along with a letter and a few other legal documents from my attorney stating that she was ordered not to contact me and the details of how to access her belongings located at the storage unit I had rented out. After a quick goodbye, I left and drove back to the city. On Sunday, I woke up to several missed calls, voicemails, and text messages. Turns out, Hannah had come home early after being alerted to something being afoot in town only to find an empty house and a for rent sign out front. Panicking, she went to my parents, who closed the door on her the moment they answered. forcing her to call everyone until she managed to somehow be contacted by Catherine and told that she had a package for her. I heard she didn't handle it well, and I knew this for sure because I got lots of angry texts and voicemails accusing me of framing Craig and being deceitful. I was worried she might come to my front door, but nothing happened. Now, 6 weeks after leaving and getting promoted, I'm content and settled. I'm a 37-year-old guy, and my wife is 31. A few years back, everything seemed fine, and I thought we were a happy, typical suburban couple. Despite being together for a long time, our marriage was solid. We had an open relationship without any major problems, financially stable, a good bed life, and we genuinely loved and respected each other. We have 2 kids, a 16-year-old girl and a 9-year-old. I believed we had a decent social life, but we hit a rough patch that many married couples go through. Both of us were working long hours, not spending enough time together, which affected our relationship. Also, she started spending more time on her phone, texting her girlfriends. I didn't think much of it until she became overly protective of her phone and started acting distant towards the kids and me. These were warning signs that bothered me. So I tried harder to be emotionally present, help with household chores, and spend quality time with her. Despite my efforts, the emotional gap between us widened over a few weeks, and she seemed more distant. I discovered the affair on our son's 8th birthday, a night with family, friends, and colleagues. While taking a photo of her, my son, friends, and her parents, a text message appeared on her phone saying, "I love you very much, baby. I miss you." My mind raced as I smiled for the photo. The number wasn't saved, and I realized the affair had been ongoing for a long time. Later that night, I checked her messages, but couldn't find details. Frustrated, I swore to get to the bottom of it. Days later, I came home early to spend time with the kids. While charging their emergency phone, I discovered her Facebook Messenger was still logged in. I found explicit messages and undressed photos between my wife and a guy named Louis. The messages revealed she didn't love me anymore, criticized our closeness, and planned to leave me for him. It was painful, spanning 2 years. Overwhelmed, I took screenshots and decided to confront her when she returned. A message came in from Craphead asking if they were still down for the weekend. She replied, "Yeah, honey," the next day. Craphead went on to remind her of the name of the hotel and room number he'd be staying at. Such an idiot. It was music to my ears. I decided to confront her there and humiliate them both. I knew where they would be and what room they'd be staying in. All I needed to do was stage the perfect surprise. I was worried about my kids and the new life that was about to come. She came home from the supermarket. I could hardly look her in the eye, and I didn't want to give myself away, so I went out. I consulted a lawyer, got my options, had a few drinks, and started laying out my plan. Sure as hell. The next day, the wife is buttering me up. She says she wants to take a spa weekend with the girls to relax, and when she returns, she wants us to go on vacation, reconnect with ourselves, and focus on our marriage. I go with it all the way. I tell her for sure, of course. It's the most incredible idea she's ever had, and I'll do anything to get us back on track. I talked to my lawyer and asked him to create a strong agreement for our separation, specifying when she should move out, the visitation schedule for weekends, and no child support until the divorce is final. She had no idea this was coming. She got ready, left, and kissed me goodbye, saying she loves me. I told her to have fun, and she left immediately. I went to the bank, closed our joint and money market accounts, and got a cashier's check for her share. I deposited my half into my new account and then went back home. In my office, I printed about 35 pages of Facebook screenshots, killing time because I wanted her and her new partner to get comfortable before I arrived. I also called her parents, inviting them to a surprise. They were worried at first and wanted to know what the surprise was, but I calmed them down and convinced them to come. I managed to contact Louis's wife through Facebook. and she wasn't that hard to find. I tried calling, but there was no answer, so I drove to her address and explained what was going on. She initially broke down, but agreed to come. We reached the hotel around 12:30, finding her parents already there. We went straight up to their room. Her parents were confused, asking where my wife was and who Louis' wife was. I calmed them down, and we went to the room. I knocked, claiming to be the hotel manager, and asked to speak with Louis. He came out in just a towel. I can't forget the look on his face. He went white, tried to talk, but his wife struck him and walked off. He went after her. Then my wife called from inside. I went in with her parents to find my wife in just a towel. She turned white, started to cry, and her mother joined in. I guess she's supposed to be her parents' golden child. She started saying things, claiming it's not what it seems, etc. I told her I'm not here to argue. I handed her the divorce papers and the printed out texts, saying I would email them to everyone we knew and give them to our daughter, so she would see the truth about her mother. She broke down, worried about her professional and parental image. I gave her a check for half of the money market account and told her I withdrew my half from all the other joint accounts. It was enough for her to find a place. She started crying more. Her parents were silent and in tears. They went to stand in the lobby. I could almost see the different thoughts and waves of emotions going through her. She asked why I would do this to her, but we both knew she brought it on herself. I told her I expect her to sign the papers and leave them at the house when she comes to get her stuff. I started to leave. I told her she could continue to have fun with Louis. I left and apologized to her parents. I'm really sorry they had to see this. They understood and advised that we both see a marriage counselor before any decision is made. But my mind is made up. On my way out, I passed Louis and his wife having a fit downstairs. I smiled a little, serves the monster right. We exchanged a few heated words. He asked if I'm happy, and I screamed yes. I got it in my car. I started to cry, but I managed to pull myself together enough to drive off. I have no idea what she did that evening or over the weekend, but she repeatedly texted and called me asking to talk. I turned off the phone. She came on Monday to talk to the kids, basically saying mommy and daddy need some time apart. We still love you, etc. She then apologized some more and said she wanted her family back, but she didn't know what she was doing, etc. I have no intention of ever taking her back. She betrayed me. I also got a call later from Mrs. Lewis. She thanked me for coming to her, etc. And we're very good friends now. She also filed for divorce. I like her. We went to court, and I think the judge felt sorry for me. He asked for statements from the kids and who they wanted to stay with. They both chose to stay with dad in the house they grew up in. My ex cried when the divorce was finalized. I got the house and had to buy out some of her equity, which wasn't much of a problem. I also got primary custody of the kids. The kids are happy and doing fine. She still calls saying we should get back together, but that is never going to happen. Update: I'm doing well and settled in nicely with the kids. The vibe around the house has been strange lately. The living room where we used to spend most of our family time feels like a deserted island now. And even the kids avoid it. I intentionally work late to avoid thinking too much about everything. Though I've been ignoring her, I started implementing some advice I read, the 180, and have been civil, if a bit distant, towards her. I'm glad I made this change because I was starting to feel like a monster for completely ignoring her. It wasn't the right way to behave, and I ended up feeling like I was the one who wronged her. The only time I deviated from the 180 was when I found her crying in the bathroom last weekend. She was there to see the kids, and I helped her up and gave her a hug, though it was more of a comforting gesture than a loving one. Sadly, now I'm suspicious of her motives, thinking she might be waiting for me to come in to put on a performance. I'm completely over my ex, though. She comes to see the kids occasionally, talking about saving the marriage and proving it was just a silly mistake. She looks terrible, lost her job, and her boss fired her after learning about our divorce. I heard she and Louis decided to stick together for a while, but it doesn't bother me. Anyway, I meant what I said in my original post. Any love I had for her disappeared after reading the hurtful things she said. She's no longer my true love. I see her as trash that needs to be taken out before it stinks up the place. She suggested a compromise in a few months and pushed for couples counseling. But I'm not interested. The thought of spending Christmas with her makes me feel ill. Her friends now share everything with me, and they're on my side. It went badly for Louis. He had a tough time in his divorce, lost his child, and faced consequences at work. He confronted me, blaming me for his situation, but I laughed it off. He lost his job after his ex-wife exposed everything to his bosses, and I got a restraining order against him. My wife and Louis live together, and I heard he doesn't treat her well, blaming her for everything. She looks pale, has no friends, and sometimes I feel sorry for her. I let her stay overnight sometimes, but I'm always careful. I've been seeing other people, and currently, I'm going out with a very nice lady I met at my party. Friends to the party to cheer me up after the divorce, and she's the breath of fresh air I needed. We've been going out for 2 months, and she's great with the kids, but I won't reveal her name. I invited her to move in with me. My ex isn't happy and still dreams of us being a family. She keeps begging me to take her back, but like I said, it's not happening. She believes she can win me back no matter what. A few weeks later, I get a call from the lawyer's office. The attorney tells me that my wife is trying to reopen the case, claiming she's pregnant with my child. I'm confused because it's not possible. We haven't been close even before the divorce. She's lying, and the child isn't mine. I share this with my friends, and they reassure me, saying it's just a desperate attempt to reconcile. How would getting pregnant help? It's obviously for Louis, the guy she's staying with. The lawyer advises me not to worry, assuring me she'll need a paternity test to prove I'm the father. I'm genuinely concerned for her mental health. She should see a psychologist. The next day, she tells my girlfriend she's pregnant with my child and claims to be the mother of my kids. I kick her out, telling her that if she wants to see the kids, they'll visit her place, and she shouldn't come back. She protests, but I stand firm. She refuses a paternity test but tells everyone the child is mine, claiming I did all this to get rid of her and bring in a new wife. After a few weeks, Louis's wife contacts me and says they're getting back together. She mentions that he's suffered enough and will be moving in with her soon. I inform her about my ex and their supposed baby, and she says they'll figure it out. Louis doesn't hesitate. He leaves my ex and returns home, leaving her alone and pregnant. I feel sorry for her troubles, but she brought it upon herself. I'm considering marrying my new girlfriend, moving away from this house, and starting a new life.